Hello, good morning, and welcome to this module 6. And today we're going to be talking about heart disease and the benefits of a plant-based diet on heart disease. So this was the actual reason, thinking about the health of my heart and wanting to live a long life and enjoy my life into old age, was actually the reason that I decided to go on a plant-based diet in the first place. And it was inspired by my father. In 2004, I was living in Germany, in the north of Germany, and my dad lives in Sheffield, in the north of England. And we used to call, once a week. And on this particular evening, I remember giving my dad a call. And this was back in 2004, and he told me that he'd been diagnosed with angina, that he'd been getting short of breath, and that the doctor told him that he got angina and heart disease. And I remember him being sad. It's something I'll never forget. I remember him saying he never thought that he would get heart disease. He was 63 years old, still fairly young in my opinion, and I think that he was surprised that he'd had that diagnosis. So my daddy went on the normal journey. The first thing they did was they gave him some pills to thin his blood, which helped for a while, but then the pain started coming back in his chest. He was then told that the next stage would be to have stents fitted. So basically they put two little tube-like things, they thread them through your leg into your heart, and they unblock the arteries that's causing the the pain and the shortness of breath. And he had these two stents fitted, and he was, I remember calling him again after, and he said, "Oh, I feel like a new man." And the stents worked, but only for a couple of years. And in all this time, my dad really didn't change anything else. He just carried on as he'd always done. I have to say, my father's always been overweight. He definitely was not somebody who thought about diet or eating healthy food. He just ate whatever took his fancy, So, but 2 years after having the stents fitted, again, the pain, the shortness of breath started to return. And he went to see the consultant, and he was told that he would now need a triple heart bypass. So he was only 67 years old, a young guy in my opinion still, facing this huge operation where they take a saw your chest open your rib cage, take a vein out of your leg, and then sew it onto your heart. And horrific, really, if you think about it. What a horrible operation. But he went in, the operation was performed, it was a success, and just 1 week later he was discharged from hospital. And I was there the night that he was discharged. I collected him from hospital and took him back home. This was the first time, as far as I know, that he'd actually been given information on nutrition. And they'd sent him home with a pamphlet explaining that he should eat more fruit and vegetables. But my dad, he's so set in his ways. He's such a man of habit that he never really took it seriously, and didn't really make any serious attempt at all to change his lifestyle. This bypass was great in one respect, that the pain had gone, the shortness of breath had gone. But he had a difficult year after that operation. He had back pain, with the rib cage being opened. He had lots of problems that year. It was a difficult year. But the operation had been successful. His life had been saved, and he was able to carry on. And he's still alive today, actually. He's now nearly 80 years old. But he's never been the same since. He's never been a well man. Since he's had other illnesses and complications. And I believe that a lot of these things that my dad's suffering from could have been prevented And certainly his life would have been a lot easier if he'd have been more aware of his diet. I mean, my dad's terrible. I mean, he's really the opposite extreme. He eats processed food, microwave food. Really, it's hardly surprising that he's so ill. But the reason I wanted to tell this story was because at the time that my father was going through all these stages, first the pills, then the stents, then the heart bypass, and then the heart bypass plus pills, there was never really any serious attempt on behalf of the doctors or the medical community, the hospitals, or anybody else really, to offer him an alternative. At that time, I had no idea. I really had no idea that diet could be so important in not only preventing heart disease, but arresting it, and in some cases even reversing heart disease. There's lots and lots of reports and cases of people who've had heart disease equally as bad as my father, who instead of going down that traditional path of pills and surgery, decided to take a different path and follow a plant-based diet, and they made a full recovery. I mean, there's some amazing stories, and I would highly recommend the book How Not to Die by Dr. Michael Greger, because that's where I got my inspiration from. The thing is, heart disease is caused when our arteries get blocked, and it's widely accepted that our arteries are getting blocked with fat, with cholesterol, which is caused by saturated fat, basically all the nasty stuff that we get from a meat and dairy based diet. So we eat these bad fats, trans fats, processed foods, meat, dairy, and blocks up our arteries, which eventually leads to coronary heart disease. And if people realize, I mean, I had no idea, but when we remove these things from our diet, so when we switch to a plant-based diet, not only are we stopping eating our intake of the cholesterol, the saturated fat, and all these things is then stopped, but in addition, if we start eating a healthy plant-based diet, a lot of these plant-based foods actually have the reverse effect. So in addition to stopping the intake of the things that's causing disease, we actually start eating things that help to reverse heart disease. I mean, really, some of the accounts are absolutely unbelievable. And in section 1, in module 1 of this course, I've added details of some really good films to watch, like What the Health and Forks Over Knives. But there's lots of resources in module 1 that really also just show how miraculous a plant-based diet can be. And I really, really wish that when my father had gone all those years ago to the doctors, that the doctor would have at least have told him, would have at least said to him, Mr. Twig, this is the route. You've got heart disease. This is the traditional route. But maybe at this stage, there's still chance if you change your diet. And at least he would have had the information. To be fair, I very, very much doubt that my father would have made any changes to his diet. I think that the outcome would have been the same for my father. I think he would have carried on as always, and I think that he would have ended up on the traditional path of medication and surgery anyway. But you know, there are people out there, and I like to think I'm included, that if a doctor would give me an alternative to medication and surgery, I think there are many people out there who would actually seize on that and say, no, I want to take this different route, and I'm prepared to make the changes necessary. And as you've learned from this course, actually the changes that are necessary are fantastic, not just for heart disease, but for all other chronic diseases, for general well-being, for, you know, there's hundreds of reasons. It's almost ridiculous that people shy away from from making the change to a healthy diet. But anyway, if you're doing this course, you understand already that our new plant-based diet can make a huge difference to heart disease. And on this page, I've added some more details, and at the bottom, I've added some sources to really interesting. There's a couple of podcasts on there, some films, and maybe I'll add some more resources as time go on, because there's some. When you actually read and see the accounts and actually realize the real life experiences that people have had when they've adopted a plant-based diet and really changed their lives back from being ill and short of breath and in pain to being healthy, it really nothing short of miraculous, and it's just a shame that it's not mentioned in the mainstream media more. So that's all I wanted to say, really. As far as heart disease is concerned, there really is no better course of action than switching to a vegan plant-based diet. Thank you very much, and I hope that if you have got worries, if you're worried that you may have heart disease, I hope this gives you some sort of inspiration that there's a different way, and there is. You can do it. Okay. Thank you very much. See you in tomorrow's session. Bye-bye.